Hello there guys, it's Joey and this is a spell range that was a request. This is for the Dark Goddess Lilith set and there are 2 votives, a pillar, a spell oil, a spell cauldron, a spell orb and a herbal blend / incense. So it was requested that I create items around the Dark Goddess Lilith, and Dark Goddess energy is something to which I am no stranger, and the minute that I heard the request and given the gorgeous lady who requested it, it immediately started conjuring up images of how it wanted to be, the energies that wanted to be present, the feelings and energy matrix behind it. Even one of the core ingredients was very prominent in the forefront of my mind. So the energies within are death, decay, rebirth, beauty from ugliness, strength from tragedy, courage from pain, sexuality, female power, walking the path alone, free from the confines of popular or unwanted opinion, challenging preconceptions. As you start to really research about the goddess Lilith, there is a figure more ancient than the Bible, and I think the earliest mention of her was Sumerian, and it takes on a primal female power. There is a definite, incredible sexuality, as there often is with Dark Goddess energies. However, this one differed from, say, Mama Morgan in it almost sort of challenges how we view sexuality, and it kind of goes, you know, it's okay to decide that you want to be sexy in this way or that way. It's less forceful, it's more seductive, and quite often with the Dark Goddess sexualities it's very rooted in its power in such a way where it's unrelenting, unafraid to say so, very almost in your face about it, very aggressive sexuality. And that aggression to the Dark Goddess Lilith energy exists, but there's a definite smoke and mirrors energy around it. It's sort of almost like the tale of seduction, the art of seduction perhaps, the way of weaving the right words to say, the right movements to make, and it being sort of reveling in that, and it being perfectly acceptable to be sensual and sexual in the way that you wish to be sensual and sexual, without any preconceptions, without any justifications, and it kind of really brings that to the fore within this energy set. The idea that the Dark Goddess Lilith has been condemned for a long time in terms of Christianity is something that always interested me. I've actually sort of got into arguments with Christians who don't know who Lilith is. Lilith in the Bible was supposed to be the first woman and refused to sexually submit to Adam and therefore got cast out. And it felt like a very patriarchal story to me. It felt odd and very sort of suppression of women. And that sort of prejudgment of who she is exists and continues to exist, and therefore she takes on the causes of women who have been berated and belittled by others in society, or the people around them, or have judged them and trying to force their way of living on someone and their opinion on someone who unrelentingly refuses to bow down to popular opinion if it is against their code of what is right. There is a strength in overcoming dark goddess energy here, and yet an absolute ferocious defense of the feminine power within oneself. So not allowing tragedy to take away from one's love and lust and sexual energies and sexual prowess. Not allowing these things to be compromised. There is a definite blossom from death associated with the goddess Lilith, and this is that all that ugliness, all that pain, all that heartbreak, all that nasty funk that has happened in the life of those who Lilith seeks out has caused them to grow and blossom and bloom forth into the flower that they are today and continue to grow forth. That all the ugliness in the past has only served to create beauty and strength. So I'm going to go through all the individual items so you can see a little bit better, and I'll just move them out of the way, hopefully. That will be enough, and we'll start with the Herbal Blend. The garnet's mine, by the way. Sorry and all, but garnets don't leave my side, especially when they're rough garnets, but it's imbuing away. Okay. Zoom in for me, there you go. It smells absolutely gorgeous. The Herbal Blend, again, was one of these Herbal Blends that I wanted the scent to be correct before the visual. With things like blessing salts, it can be important to really focus on the visual and make sure the visual reflects the energy of the particular spell set in question. But with this, as with many of the sort of darker sensual energies, it's important that the scent come first and foremost, and as it happened, the Herbal Blend looks pretty as anyway. It almost has that kind of Sumerian feel, actually. There's something a little bit different, a little bit exotic, and that wasn't initially what was planned. It was just taking the energies and interweaving them into a scent which evoked the emotions of which we've already talked. I'm actually going to mention something else which I just had come to the forefront of my mind. I was starting to make a go of this set on a Wednesday, and I sort of got shut down and told to do it on a Friday. And I was like, okay. And when it transpired that it was the correspondence towards Friday and the energies of love goddesses, for which Lilith can be associated with love and lust. And it was challenging the preconception of what a love goddess is, because love has the power to build, to form bonds, to be perhaps the lighter side of love, the fluffier side of love, but it also has the ability to break people and cause the deepest despairs, the deepest obsessions, and it has to be treated with a level of respect that I think love goddesses sometimes don't get treated with. I think that's like a face to Aphrodite that I would be very aware of, the vindictive side of love, the obsessive side of love. I mean, if you've watched Jessica Jones this weekend like I did, then Purple Man is the perfect example of obsession and the misconstraints and overstepping boundaries and things of that nature. And when the dark goddess and love energy is not in balance and not fully embraced, it can cause problems with people who and presenting challenges of people who don't see love properly, and it needs addressing and balancing and working through. So I just wanted to mention that as we moved through the the idea of that as we move through the Herbal Blend and into that. So there you go, that's what it actually looks like, and it smells really, really good. Then we're going to do the Spell Cauldron, and you get an idea of colour theme. So this is really, really interesting to me, because when I first initially started thinking about Dark Goddess energy and how I relate to Dark Goddess energy, my initial feeling was like black and red, and what actually ended up is being black and pink. So black and pink in combination, I think, are the two colours that together are really, really sexy in my mind, I guess, in my visual representation. I think black and pink in forms of like lingerie, or even just, you know, the colours of a woman wearing them, are absolutely incredibly sexy. And I think because it presents this really wonderful duality of the love goddess. So you can take pink and you can be like, oh, pink is a flirty colour, but it's kind of lighter, it's kind of sexy, but it's kind of tame, if you like. And then black is down the other end with that deeply racy, and then you mix the two and it becomes the art of seduction, which the goddess Lilith is on point for. It becomes the balance between the sweet and the naughty, and it kind of integrates and twists around this idea of a deep sexuality. And so black and pink is what the colour magic ended up being, and it just seemed to really roll into one another once I realised that that's where we were going with it. So again, you have the deep shimmer moving through, which I love, and almost sort of like this ring, this almost fey-like ring here, and that was just in the forefront of my mind of something that I knew I wanted it to be visually, and it's almost like the emergence of the goddess, the pushing through and the rising up of that flower imagery that we talked about, like the lotus imagery that is associated with the goddess Lilith, and it breezing through the funk and the ick and the blooming through. So next we have the spell votives, which were requested, 2 of them, and they reflect the energies already present within the spell cauldron and the pillar as well. So I don't think oh, there you go, there's the pillar is a reflection of that as well. So it follows the same line, it follows the same idea, it follows the same energies, but the votives sort of take on a much firmer sexuality. They're steeped in the sexual side of things, the deep black, and then the sort of popping of that pink in her herbs and her energies. Okie dokie. Everything has been imbued with garnet, by the way. Just for the sake of it. Right, now the spell oil is kind of special. The spell oil is not going to be recreated for anybody else, and I've already spoken to Nadia about it anyway, so okay. So this is a spell oil. This is a better view of it than the view you've already seen, and this is a seemingly gentle, beautiful spell oil, and I'm just going to leave you to look at it in a minute. And it kind of, if it had been anybody else, I would have done it a different way, but given who it is and the high level of respect I have for this lady, and it basically allowed me to do what I actually wanted to do with it. Had it been anybody else, and I'm sorry for everybody else, I just probably wouldn't have done it. But if you're looking at it, it's, you know, how is this dark goddess energy? It's kind of like light and ethereal. This is a poisonous spell oil. This basically has the appearance of being sweet and cute and fluffy and angelic and and it's got a bite that will rip your head off if you are not aware of its true potential, if you are not awake, if you are not aware, if you are not respectful. And that to me is the essence of working with any dark goddess. I think Lilith is going to be completely that way from the energies that I've experienced. And it's very much you go in with a level of respect, you go in with the deep knowledge. This can shift up your perception, it can shift up your energies, it can change situations wholeheartedly, but it's a poison. It contains a poisonous herb. So there you go. And I wouldn't have done it for anybody else because my poison herbs are limited, incredibly so. But that's what this set demanded. And I was sat there and I was like, I either make the spell oil to be around the same herbs and things as everything else, because this is the only one that contains it. Nothing else contains it. Or I just go and full on do what I wanted to do, and I double checked and she was fine with it, so we did what we wanted to do. Last but not least is the spell orb itself. Gosh, okay. I'm trying to show you so you can't see the reflection. There we go. I decided to go with one of the charms I was sent. This is a crow skull with the flower on the actual head. And I went with that because I thought it represented nicely the death, the decay element, and the birth from death and decay. And it kind of means that there's a little bit of me in it, because you wouldn't necessarily go for crow raven skulls necessarily to represent Lilith if you're going by your bog standard definitions, but I felt quite strongly about having like this death and rebirth element within it. Again, we have the beautiful pink and black in conjunction. This is a much more vibrant pink than I've used for any other goddess or indeed any other ribbon. This is specific to this. And the one for Morrigan, for example, is a much more of a raspberry, sort of a darker pink, whereas this one is a much more vibrant pink. This one has that female sexuality, that unashamed, and you can see inside there all the usual goodies in there, crystal and spell scroll and all the usual goodies. Right, so let's just pop those in, shuffle them, and that will do. So it took a little bit longer than I was anticipating, and it had to be right. I don't know if anybody else has come across this in their working with dark goddesses, but they are far more demanding than any non-dark gods and goddesses that I've ever interacted with, and I'm fine with that because, you know, that level of respect is something that I require in my practice with the goddess Morrigan. I devote myself completely, and therefore it becomes a requirement of a dark goddess path as far as I'm concerned, and so I expect nothing less. So when that sort of thing pops up within creating items for other people, even other goddesses, this is the case with this one, then I'm good with that, as long as it gets done correctly, if that makes sense. It's more important for it to be right than it to be right now. So I hope I did it justice. I'm really pleased with how it came out. I'm really happy with it. Again, I won't be recreating the spell oil for anybody else, just because it requires, I think, a level of this personal interaction with the person to know that they know what they're doing and they're not going to, you know, be poisoning themselves or anything like that. So yeah. So this was a spell range for the Dark Goddess Lilith. Many blessings.